Hello racers, and welcome to today's video. Today's video is episode 4 of season 2 of Mini-B on-road. This series is all about bringing what began as a Mini-B brushed RTR to getting on the podium in our regional championship, which will be held end of April of 2024. So we only have 4 more videos until that race. And in each video what we do is make a game plan for tuning the car, and then we'll show the performance of the car at the end of the video. So today's game plan is to get more steering in the car without traction roll. And for those who are following the series, at the end of video 3 we had a bit of a push coming into corners at the end of the large straight and in a hairpin corner. So starting at the front, working our way to the back, what is the game plan for today's video? First up, we're going to address the front tires. You can see that they're getting a bit bald throughout the series of racing on carpet, and I think that is adding to the push of the car. So we're going to switch to some fresh treads. We're going to glue the outside side wall so it doesn't traction roll like we did before in episode 3. See the side wall there, shiny with the glue. That is a quick and easy fix to prevent traction roll and give us a bit of insurance. The next thing we're going to do is install a new front bulkhead. We broke one in video 2, and I just got in a new KYX Aluminum front bulkhead. Now this isn't really a performance part, but it does add a little bit of weight. And what we'll do is we'll measure before and after installing this part to see how it changes the weight bias of the car. The next thing we're going to do is, I believe some of the handling problems is from the slop of the steering. You can see that there's quite a bit of slop. That's not the servo moving. You hear the servo move? But there's quite a bit of steering movement there without actually moving the servo. So to address that, we're first going to install the Savox 0257 metal gear. This is a little metal mini servo that is made to fit into the Mini-B. And we're going to pair this little servo with the Hot Racing 21 tooth servo saver. I still want to run a servo saver on my car because we do have barriers around the track, and when you run into those barriers, I don't want to break parts or pop off ball ends and things. So I'm going to put the Hot Racing servo saver on that. So front bulkhead, Savox servo, fresh servo saver on the front. We're going to leave the electronics the same. Hopefully I get a chance this week to tidy that up. Moving to the rear, I moved the shocks. Traditionally I ran my shocks on the back of the tower. You can see I ran it from the back of the tower here to there to there. But I moved it to the front. Traditional, that's where you put it, in the front of the arm, in the front of the tower, to move the weight forward. So my goal is to make the rear of the car a bit more looser than trying to add grip to the front. So I don't want to add grip to the front because we just got rid of traction roll, and I don't want to add traction roll in by adding grip to the front. So what we're going to do is try to remove a bit of grip from the rear. So one thing I did, move the weight forward, plus you can see that I moved the shock in one hole, and what that does is it'll just remove that initial grip going into a corner. So the rear will have less initial grip than the front going into the corner, and hopefully that'll give a bit more stability going into the corner. And I don't want to lose any rear grip coming out of the corner, so we're going to try one hole inward on the top, and it's all the way out on the bottom. And also, I've already done it. You can see a new set of holes have been drilled and the wing has been mounted about a ½ inch forward. Again, what that'll do is help the car rotate in the corner at the end of say a high-speed section or at the end of the straightaway. That's what I'm hoping that change there will do. And also, we installed the C and D blocks, the adjustable C and D blocks from Losi. I'm going to try it with the -1 degree of toe, and that'll give 2 degrees of rear toe from the standard 3 degrees of rear toe. And what that should also do is loosen up the car in a corner. Should give a little bit more corner speed, but that'll be at the expense of a bit of rear grip. So we've done a couple of things just to take the edge off the rear grip. Move the shocks to the front, lean them in on the top a little bit, move the wing forward, and 2 degrees of rear toe. So before I install all these parts, let's do a quick weight bias measurement of the Mini-B right now. And then when I put on the new parts, we'll check it again and we'll see if adding the new servo, saver, and bulkhead has changed in any. We'll just do it quickly. I just want to see the front and rear bias. So you can see right now the front is 40% and the rear is 60. So right now we have a 40-60 split between front and rear bias. So we'll add in these new servo and bulkhead, servo, saver, and we'll see if that changes that weight bias. And what we want to put for a higher grip condition is we're trying to move the weight from the rear of the car to the front of the car. In a high grip situation like traction rolling and such, you'd want to move the weight from the rear to the front. It's a little bit counterintuitive, but what that does is overloads or keeps the weight constant on the front tire. So there's no big weight shift to the front that will trigger a traction roll. It'll just keep a steady weight on the front. And I think that's going to help us in this week's race. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to install these parts and then we'll be back just to check on the weight bias and how that changed, and then we'll see the running video. Okay, we'll see you in a few minutes. And we are back after installing all the parts on the Mini-B. Let's just review the parts that I installed, give you my impression of it, then we'll look at the final setup, and then we'll see this perform on the track. So first up was that front KYX bulkhead. That fit perfect. I'm very impressed with that. That was an eBay find, but the fit and finish of that was great. Fit right in place. One thing I did notice is that I had to add a few extra shims underneath the steering rack. One shim on each side to take up the slot. I did notice the plastic one kind of fit down over the posts, like it would squish down over the posts, where this is aluminum and it didn't squish down over the post. I had to take up the space with a couple little washers. Other than that, fits perfect. The next thing we want to talk about is the hot racing speed control, or hot racing servo saver that we put on there, and the Savox servo that we did, the 0257 Metal Gear Plus. Now, both are 21 tooth. The servo saver says it's a 21 tooth saver, but this is a tight fit. When I put that hot racing servo saver on there, it would fit on about 1 millimeter, and then I would have to pull it off. But when I put it on the stock one, it fit easily. So the output shaft on that Savox is a little bit bigger than the stock one. Even though it's a 21 tooth, it's a slightly different size. So what I did is I would push the servo saver on, pull it off, and then if there was any burrs, I would slide it on the end of the output shaft of the Spectrum. stock one. And I did that over and over and over, and eventually it popped right on. I put the screw in with a little bit of thread lock to hold it there. And that seems, that combination, you can see the amount of play that's in it now. Much less at the Servo Saver. Everything is perfect in there now. Okay, so the goal of this setup was to get more steering without traction roll. So this is the final setup that we're going to test today. Front tires, we're going to put a fresh set of tires on, glue the outside edge to help prevent traction roll. In the front, I still have it on the stands. What I tried to do was about 1 degree of camber. Now there is a little bit of play in the front. These are just plastic parts, so there is a bit of play, but I tried to get 1 degree of camber in the front. I didn't adjust any of the linkages. 40 weight shock oil in the shocks. Shocks moved all the way out, and I have 6mm spacers in the shocks to help keep the car down in ride height. The ride height is about 9mm, with the front slightly lower than the rear. In the rear of the car, we're trying to loosen the rear up a little bit. So I moved the shocks to the front, shocks all the way out at the bottom, all the way in at the top. I put, you can see the shims here on the outside hub. About 1mm of shims out there to raise the roll center. We adjusted the rear to give, with the adjustable D-block, so now we have 2 degrees of rear toe and 3 degrees of anti-squat. We adjusted the C-block. Then you can see that the wing has been moved ahead a ½ inch. So let me put these tires on and we'll head to the track and we'll see how this performs with the new setup. See you in a second. And we're back with the car on track. You can see I qualified 4th, but in the bottom right you can see the yellow car jumps to 2nd place. So having a great start to this final. The car was handling much better in this race day. With the extra weight of that front bulkhead, aluminum bulkhead, plus the weight of the servo, I put that on the scales and it weighed an extra 5 grams in the front, which helped smooth the steering out. But by the end of the race day, the track was getting grippier and we were having a bit of trouble with, it was just barely ready to roll in Q3, but let's take a look in the top right of the track. As I go around this corner, it gets up on 2 wheels and slowly rolls. And that orange car went by and I moved from 2nd to 3rd place. A little disappointing. Now, as we kind of watch the car on track, I'll just explain a few things. First, with the fresh tires on front, that gave way more grip than the worn out tires with those stock Mini-B tires. And the car ended up with a lot of steering. So how I had to adjust it was I was put traction compound on the rear of the car, but I didn't put anything on the front. And the car still had a lot of steering. But what contributed to that traction roll, and this is a rookie mistake. In Q2, I had broken the right upper link, and I didn't have my camber gauge with me, so I was just eyeballing the camber on the right side. Now it was rolling on the left, so I was kind of adjusting back and forth. So I ended up, when I got home, I measured it, and I had way too much camber. I had 4 degrees of camber. The other issue I had was I noticed that the steering was like really inconsistent earlier in the day. That it would take left-hand corners much tighter than it would take would take a right. So as I would go through the infield, there was an awful lot of left-hand corners that are hairpins, and it was pushing really bad, taking a left, and then the rights were like very touchy. So I thought I had a lot of tweak in the car, so I was adjusting shock collars to work the tweak out. I was adjusting the camber, trying to get more steering out of the car when turning left. And then in the end, and this is what the rookie mistake was, I noticed that there was a ball stud on the hot racing steering rack that had come loose, and it was rubbing the front bulkhead. So the car was actually being limited how much it could steer to the left. So by the time I found that and figured it out, I had to undo all the changes, and there just wasn't enough time. So the car was not at 100%. So let's just follow it through, going onto the straight, through the infield. You can see the car is working quite well. Nice tight corners. Unfortunately, watching the top right. Again, traction roll. All that work that we've done to try to prevent that, and the camber was wrong. So how the camber was that with it leaned in 4 degrees, it was not getting out on that glue. Remember, we saw the glue that we put on the car. So that just promoted the traction roll. So it's disappointing, but as you can see, the car is handling much better, much more competitive in the pack. And that's what we want. We want to be in the position that we're competing for the podium, and not just, at the tail end of the race. We want to get towards that sharp end of the field. So with the changes in the rear of the car, I did have to stand the rear shocks back up. I found with them laid down, and with the increased steering that the front tires had, it was just too touchy and it would lose traction. Let's follow the car here, going through that center hairpin. Next hairpins, we're over on the left, coming onto the straight, going through the sweeper at the end of the straight. That's a tough thing for this car. Again, onto the straight, down. You can see once again a traction roll. So that's our 3rd roll in this race. So you can't win races with the car flipping, and we're just steadily moving down the order. Started lucky, was in 2nd, rolled, fell to 3rd, rolled, went to 4th. And once again, you can see the car has rolled. A little bit funny Marshall there, but in the end, it didn't make much difference. We finished where we finished. Mainly a rookie mistake with the adjustments. If I had to notice that the steering rack had come loose, I could have fixed that without changing so much in the car. So, making progress. You can see that it's a far cry from where we started this video series.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, second.
We'll just watch a few more laps, see how the car is handling. So, in the next video, we got to think about how we're going to prevent the traction roll. We're making some good progress, that's for sure. Car's handling much more consistently, but we still got some work to do to get on the podium for the championship race. So if you like this type of video, click like, follow us more see how this series ends. We'll be having 3 more videos in this series. And if you have any comments,